Dean, appreciate you talking to us, and formally welcome to the football club. You've been here a couple of weeks now, is it? How have you found your time so far?
Yeah, this is sort of the start of week 4, so been a bit hectic so far. There's a lot to do, a lot to sort of try and see and get around and get to know everybody and sort of see all of the stuff that goes on. Academies are a big operation now, so there's a lot to look at, but really enjoyed it so far. Sort of knew about the project before I started, and having been in here now for 3 weeks or so, sort of even more excited about the project and where we can sort of progress and take the academy to.
You've joined from Norwich, but you've also worked for Bury and Huddersfield as well. What experiences do you want to bring from those clubs?
Yeah, I think it sort of puts me in a position where I've worked in different parts of the country with different types of players, different sort of ways of looking at the game, different types of football, and at clubs, a club that's been in the Premier League, a club that was in League 2 while I was working there, and sort of everything in between. So I think that range of experience can sort of give me perspective on what we do here, can give me a bit of a base of what to compare to, and sort of assess what we do and try and give a picture of what good looks like, and try and work towards us striving to be that and be as good as we can possibly be with the resource that we've got at this football club.
Although it is a position that has previously been held at the football club, often seems in football roles can be quite fluid, can't they, and adapt and change. What exact areas will you be looking at?
I think that the academy manager role encompasses the whole operation, and as I mentioned, it is a big role these days. My sort of priority would be to set up a team of staff that's empowered to do their job, and for me to support them to do their job as well as they can. I think ultimately an academy comes down to its players. Everything that we do has got to be about the players and supporting them in their experience and their journey with us. And for me, the main bits have been around the football stuff. That's ultimately what we're here to do and what we're going to be judged on, but being mindful of there's a lot more to it than that, and making sure we're operational, the logistics and everything that we run is smooth and efficient and effective. Player care, education, all of that stuff is part of it. But my outlook on that is to get the really good staff, which we've got here, and empower them to do the job. They're the specialists in what they do, so my job is to support them to be able to do the job as well as they can. But ultimately for me to then focus on the football, and make sure we're doing what we're ultimately here to do.
Talking of staff, you'll have formed some relationships over the last few weeks, meeting Gary Probert, John McGrew, the list goes on. What will your relationship with them be like? What areas will you address with, say, a Gary Probert and a John McGrew? How will that differ?
Yeah, I think working with Gary will be the sort of higher level strategic stuff of not just the short term of what we're going to do in the next month, but how does this look like in a year, 3 years, 5 years, and what's the direction of travel for the academy, but how does that sit within the plan for the club and where the club hopes to get to. I think with people like John, it's again supporting. John's a really experienced person in what he does, so my job's to help where I can and give him the platform to do what he's good at, and I think that applies to everybody within the academy. Is everyone will have clarity on the role, and I'll hope to give that and be clear on what I expect, and then my job is to give them the platform to do that and to support them to do it as well as they possibly can.
For the teams, last year was a very successful campaign in terms of league position and trophies. Of course, it's about much more than that, but what goals have been outlined for this campaign?
Yeah, I think that sort of stuff is great. It's great for the players. The experience of competing in leagues and cups and doing well is brilliant, but that for me is not the marker of a successful academy. And we've got to get back to an academy that regularly produces players for our first team, and that is the the big driver for us. So although we want our teams to compete at every level in every game that we play, we want to be competitive. And there's a natural drive within people to want to win games. That's great, and I would never want to take that away from people. But my marker of success is how many players we get into our first team, and if not in our first team, how many players do we produce for the game, for the wider game, which is something we've got everything that we do, every department, every member of staff has got to be united in that cause of working towards how do we progress players through our system. So team-based success is not my priority, if I'm honest. So you might start to see teams that are a little bit younger, players being pushed and progressed through the pathway a little bit quicker because we feel that's the right thing for them to do, and we might sacrifice some sort of short-term team success, but hopefully that gives us a longer-term goal of, now you're seeing local homegrown players in and around the first team squad regularly, which is ultimately what we're here to do.
Yeah, that being the long-term and key goal of an academy. What steps need to be taken to make sure that's the case over the coming seasons? You mentioned things like they're pushing the lads up an age group potentially. Is that the type of thing you mean? Yeah,
I think it's an individual approach to every player. So every player is different. Some people need to play in an older age group, some don't. That would be taken on an individual sort of case-by-case basis and regularly sort of analysed and reviewed to make sure we're doing what's best for that player at that particular time. So that would be, again, as I mentioned earlier, being a complete focus on the players and what they need, and every member of staff working towards making sure they get what they need, not always what they want, because can be a little bit different, but what they need and the challenge that they need to be given to progress through the pathway and get to reaching their potential. I think the other bits of being in the building now for sort of 3 weeks or so is just the general sort of consistency and continuity within the programme and what we deliver, everybody having a shared vision, which I know the club are working hard at the moment, of getting that vision for the club, which needs to cascade into the academy and get everybody on the same page. And that covers a lot of things for us to get everybody together and working towards a common goal, and then generally sort of driving the standards around the training ground to make sure that we sort of adhere to that, and we can challenge players appropriately. People are accountable for what they do, and we have an environment that is enjoyable for people to come into and be a part of, but people enjoy working hard and doing things properly and at the highest standard that we can possibly do it at. So that's a big short-term goal for me at the moment, of driving the standards and getting everybody together towards a sort of common goal, again, which is progressing players through and hopefully getting homegrown players into our first team. And
just finally, the under-18s kicked off their campaign at the weekend. The under-21 start at Portman Road tomorrow. Is everyone excited about the season? And you, on the personal front, are you excited about it as well?
Yeah, I've sort of been around some of the pre-season games over the last 2 or 3 weeks. As you can imagine, for everybody, pre-season can be disjointed at times, and everybody's looking forward now to getting into the proper games and the proper campaign which we've been working towards. So really exciting for me to start to get around that stuff and see the teams in action properly, and more importantly, as I keep saying, see the players in that environment where they're challenged and hopefully developing. So really looking forward to the season starting properly and getting into it all.